Welcome to today's seminar, Use Filters and Segments in Google Analytics, presented by ASPE. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melissa Monroe, and I'll be your host for today. I want a few minutes to go over some procedures for today's seminar. All of these will be muted to prevent background noise and interruptions. Today's seminar will be 1 hour long, including a Q&A session. We will be taking questions throughout the presentation via the Q&A function at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. In instances, I will answer your question immediately. For questions beneficial to the entire group, I will hold those questions until the Q&A session. During the time, we will address as many questions as possible. We'll be sending a copy of today's slides and a link to audio recording of today's presentation via email to everyone by the end of next week. Now, a moment to introduce our presenter for today. Tina Arnoldi is the founder of 360 Internet Strategy and a resident of Charleston, South Carolina since the late 1990s. She qualified in both Google Analytics and Google AdWords, helping clients manage their internet strategy. Tina is also an experienced presenter, offering instruction on topics including Google tools and social media. As a licensed professional counselor, she has a unique set of qualifications and insight on consumer behavior. She was recognized in 2007 by the Charleston Business Journal with a 40 Under 40 award, and again in 2011 as an influential woman in business. Now I'm going to turn things over to Tina, and we'll begin.
Oh, thanks for that intro, Melissa. Before I jump in too far, I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. So it's in the chat box or Q&A, you just say okay, then I know I'm good before I get in too deep. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about segments and filters in Google Analytics, and I'm going to be switching back and forth. So we'll be looking at these slides together, and then I'm going to go over to a Google Analytics account so we can see exactly how an account. So, and I see a note here that somebody cannot hear me, so if you bear with me, okay. Everyone else, I heard from one person, but I just want to make sure everyone else can hear me. No, now maybe people are not hearing me, but if you would just let me know if you are hearing me, if you would put that in the chat box or the Q&A. The issue is with sound. Okay. Well, I'll go keep. I know one person, at least one person responded, but for the other people on here, if you are hearing me okay, if you would go ahead and put that in the chat box or the Q&A box now, just make sure that you hear me okay. Well, I'm not sure if I have a shy group here or if people can't hear me. I guess I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, well, I guess we'll hope for the best, because as far as I can see, my audio is working okay. I'm just a little concerned. So I'll just go ahead and jump in. So, like I said, talking about segments and filters in Google Analytics, and as Melissa said, my business is 360 Internet Strategy, and I help people with getting online. So the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the differences between segments and filters. So segments here on the left, filters on the right. So we'll talk about the filters first. So filters are something that you do with your data that's permanent. So a permanent change to your Google Analytics data. You are removing data from your account permanently. It's also data moving forward. So if you want to apply this data or apply this filter, it's only going to affect your Google Analytics account moving forward. The second thing, or the third thing with filters, is that it affects everyone's view of analytics. So if you are, you and 5 other people have access to an analytics account and you use a filter, that's going to affect how your data appears to everyone. So you're removing it in your analytics account. This one, number 4 for filters here on the right side, it's something that's done by an administrator, so somebody who has higher level permissions on account. One you're going to hear me say many times today is to be very careful. If it is a permanent removal, permanent change to your account, you definitely want to be careful. And then we'll get into the segments piece next. So we'll start with the filters. Filters, I'm going to show you this on the screens here, and then we will go ahead into the live account. I do the slides kind of so you have this as a reference if you're doing this later on in your account. It's done in the admin area of analytics, and I'll walk you through views and filters. If you're looking in your account and you don't see an option to create a filter, it's probably because you have lower level privileges, and you'll want to talk to someone in your office who has higher privileges that can do that for you. This screenshot here is just for your reference, and again, we'll go into the account that we're looking under admin, and then the right side of your account or screen that says view, and then you go in there, and that's where you start working on your filters. The one I want to make sure you notice is that where it says create new view. So whenever you are getting ready to apply filters, you want to make sure that you create a new view before you add a filter, simply because it is a permanent change in your account. So when you'll log in and you look at view, and then you do create new view, so you're having a clean, different, a container, think of it that way, as a container for your data before you start adding those filters. See here that you go into filters, you start to add a new filter, and you can see that I will have one here, and I'm going to walk you through the couple that I have in the slides here today. And again, this is so you have the reference later. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm adding a filter to a view to exclude office traffic. This is a very common use of filters, is you want to exclude your office traffic because your office is not your buyers, right? So you see here, exclude office traffic. I always recommend naming it something that's going to make sense later on. The way we're excluding the traffic is we're excluding traffic from an IP address. So sample, I just made this up, but if this is the IP address for your office, what you're doing is you're excluding the traffic that is coming from your office. So you're not getting the data from your coworkers. So we named the filter. Again, it always should be something that you'll remember later on. Choose predefined or custom. We're just doing a predefined one at the moment. And we're using exclude. You're going to see there's exclude, include. There's different options, and then our criteria, which in this case was excluding the office traffic. I'll show you another one before we go ahead and look at this in an account. In this case, you follow the same steps. This one is a filter to look at AdWords data only, right? And I would recommend really think carefully about your filter names, because if it's AdWords data, that's just the name of the AdWords data. Does that mean you're including your AdWords data or you're excluding your AdWords data? So you want to make sure that it's something that's going to make sense 6 months down the road. In this case, we're still doing a predefined. This time we're including instead of excluding. So the name says we're looking at AdWords data only. So you're including a medium. Now, campaign medium tells you about the traffic that's coming to your site. So we're including the medium of CPC, which is cost per click. So you can see how we might do an include and an exclude. I'm going to come back over to the quick start and go ahead and share my screen. And if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat box or the Q&A that you can now see my analytics screen, then I know I'm all set there. Just confirm that everybody can see this. Thank you. So let me tell you a little bit about the account we're in right now. This is a hobby site that I have where it's called books.tinarnoldi.com. There's no revenue generating from it. I just happen to be a book lover, and I'll occasionally put reviews, not as much as I used to, but I use this one when I'm teaching, just because there's no, client information or competitor information in here. So getting started, so here I'm in my books account, and it said you come over to your admin area. What I'll show you first is I'll do a filter. Let me show you an existing one, and then I'll walk you through the steps for creating it. So I have a view that I called AdWords Data Only. So what I'm doing here, so with this books account, I also use this account when I'm teaching AdWords classes, which is why you think, well, if you're not monetizing it, why would you send AdWords, there? But I can get an AdWords click for this site for maybe 5-10 cents. So for me to throw $10 in once in a while to use it as a teaching account, makes sense for me. So one of these I have is a view of my AdWords Data Only. So this is one that's already created. So I'm showing one that's created, and then we'll create a one. AdWords Data Only. Let's take a look at the filter that I have in here. Named well, AdWords Data Only. When I get AdWords Data Only, you'll see what I did here is what you'll see on the screenshot. So it's the AdWords Data Only, where I'm including a medium of CPC. So I'm including only my AdWords data. I show you from scratch to how to do the excluding office traffic. So if you want to exclude office traffic, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new one. Exclude office traffic. It's something that makes sense in your time zone. And then I create the view. It's created. You can see I have a view of exclude office traffic. So I go into my filter and a new filter. I'm going to use the same name that I have. I name the filter the same thing as the view. So again, the view is the collection of your data, and the filter is how you're adjusting the data. So I'm excluding my office traffic. It's print. So exclude. Now I'll show you for your IP address. I'm just going to hop on over to this site. If you don't know what your IP address is, you can go to this What is my IP screen, and that'll give you your IP address. So now I'm going to just make this up. I'm going to say that my office traffic IP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just making up numbers here. So once I save this, I'm going to have a view or a collection of my data that's going to get rid of all of my office traffic. Now, if you have a small office with a few people and they don't spend a lot of time on your company website, you may not need to do this. This is important if you work in an office and there's maybe 100 of you. And if people are accessing the website, then obviously that's a problem. If you don't have your real customer data, customers are mixed with employees, and so it's a commonly used filter, but definitely should have you should have separate views for what you're doing. You should have, and I will show you a couple other filters. I'm going to just go ahead and discard that. I have one account that is all of your data. You might even want to name it, site no filters added. So you have one, what I call a raw view, where you have everything, your office traffic, your AdWords, your spam traffic, your everything else, to just have one profile. So let me give you a couple other filters that you can use. Of course, I'm not going to apply them to here. I just want to walk you through a couple common ones that I've seen before we move over to segments. A used filter is to have one for a specific area. So I'm going to call this, I live in South Carolina, so I'm going to call this SC only. And I'll say this filter, I'm here to a custom. I gave this a bad name when I just said SC. So I'll say include SC only, and it should probably spell out South Carolina in case you work with workers in different areas. They may not automatically know what that is. So my filter field would be region. And I do want to back up. I see what I did here. So I went to include, but what I wanted, went to exclude, but what I want is include. So I'm going to include, and if you're wondering if one of your analytics fields is something that you can do a filter on, you always come in here and just start typing. And if it comes up, then you know you're good. So I know that I can include region, And I'd probably want to look back at my data to make sure it's, spelled South Carolina, which I believe it is with geographics. And then once I do this, then I am including my South Carolina data only. So the reason you might want to do that is if you are a national campaign or a national company, or if you're looking to do some new marketing efforts in South Carolina or whatever state or city, that you might want to isolate that data to look at it. Okay, another one is a lowercase filter. And so let me just create this one and I'll show you lowercase for medium. Okay, so a campaign medium, again, this is something that describes how data is coming into your site. And what happens sometimes is when people are creating campaigns and they're adding extra tracking, these are little parameters that you add at the end of links so you can track exactly where your traffic is coming from. Sometimes people will use CPC as a capital letter. It's, capital C, capital P, capital C. And other times people who are doing your campaigns may use lowercase, like lower c, lower p, lower c. The problem is that Google will see those as two different things. They see an uppercase CPC as one thing and a lowercase as a different thing. So you're going to see different multiple lines of data for the same exact thing. So if you find that you're looking at your data, that you're seeing that, and you just simply do a lowercase filter on a specified field, then if things are not named consistently, this will change it to lowercase, so it makes it easier for you to look at your data. I'll show you one more before we go over to segments. So discard that. Another one, and again, you see I'm doing this under this view, kind of for demo purposes, not creating a new view. I just want to see different filters. But if I were to do the next filter where I'm looking at blog, it of course would not be under something called exclude office traffic. So my filter, I'm going to say blog traffic only. Well, here is we will include traffic to the subdirectories that contain blog. Of course, this assumes that your site is website.com/blog. The reason you might do this is because you have a really active blog, and that's a huge part of your strategy. And you want to isolate that traffic only. Somebody's job at your organization is just to do the blog, and it makes it easy for them to focus on just that piece. So what I said is I only want to include my traffic to /blog. So we'll go ahead and come back to the presentation. See if for a minute so we can see make sure you can see the slides. And then we will kind of keep going through how to use segments. And what I'll do, again, same thing I did here, is I'm going to take you through the slides so you have that as a reference. And then we'll go back over to my screen. We'll look at segments in a real account. And when we start to get close to the end, we'll start doing some Q&A. So again, for now, we're just back to the slides, and then I'm going to share out my screen again in a few minutes. So we just got done talking about the filters on the right-hand side. So what we're doing now is we're going to look at segments, which is this on the left-hand side. So segments are temporary. So it is just letting you pull out a piece of your data when you're in a specific session, right? So you log on, you look at something temporarily in a segment, you get out of your account, and all your data is still there tomorrow. It's not a permanent change. That's temporary. You also look at your data historically. So whereas a filter is your data moving forward, segments will let you look back in time. I think when you apply a segment, it's just affecting your view of data. So if your coworkers log in, they're not going to see, they're not going to see any of this information. So this is just something for your view. And so this isn't, again, since it's not a permanent change to your data, it's not anything, you're not going to ruin things. So there, you don't have to worry about the rights that you have. And then again, so no harm done. You create a segment, you don't like it, you have not made any kind of permanent changes to your data. So talk about some reasons that you might use it is if you want to compare different channels. So you want to look at your paid versus organic, or you want to look at traffic from mobile devices versus desktop devices. So just different ways of looking at your data. So all of these things over here that are built into analytics, these are things that you can use as segments. So you could say a source of Facebook. Technology, you could say mobile versus desktop traffic. So that's where segments can do. I'll walk you through again, adding it here in the presentation, and then we'll walk through it live in an account. Segments, you're going to see this anywhere you are in your reporting. If you look to the top of your screen, you'll see this Add Segment option. And that's where you'll be adding segments, whether it's an existing segment or you're creating a new one. Show you first when we get into the segments is that we are going to look at system. And this just means these are the ones that are built into analytics. So, you Googling, you might want to look at sessions, you might want to look at direct traffic. If you're an e-commerce site, you might want to look at who made a purchase. So these are the existing segments, which we're going to look at those first in a few moments. Segments, you can look up to at 4 at a time. So getting started, you might want to just look at 2 at a time. Like I gave the example of mobile versus desktop or organic versus paid traffic. But if you want to, you just click on anywhere in here, and what you're doing then is you're adding a segment to this top row, and you add up to 4 at a time. And then if you click apply, you see your data is going to look differently because you're looking at it in these different pieces. And it'll be clearer when you see it live here. So this one, what I'm going to show in my account, is this was a simpler one. As I said, I just want to look at organic. So if I check it down there, I'll see it up top. And I'll compare that to paid. And once I click paid, I see that up top. And then I clicked apply. And once I did that, I will see, as I'm looking in my account, I'm see the differences between the organic and the paid traffic. This will show, you can see a lot more. The blue is organic and the orange is paid. So there's a lot more happening with organic, but too, you can also segment out that paid traffic and see what's happening there. And that's kind of a screenshot of kind of an overview. Then you can drill into your data. So this is a little more detailed where I'm looking at my organic traffic and paid traffic and looking at it in context of geography. If I look at, and this makes sense to me, so Canada, a few people came to this book blog organically. They just were on google.com and they found my site. And then paid traffic, none, because I was doing when I throw in my AdWords campaigns every once in a while, I haven't been marketing it outside of the United States. So it makes sense to see those results in here. And then want to create a new one, and I'll walk you through this as well. But if you're creating a new one, you're going to start in that same place of adding a segment. And of course, when you add, you can either grab one of these existing ones, or you can say, I want to create a new one. So you use an existing one or a new one, and I'll walk you through both. Creating your new one, you're selecting what you want to see. So now Google gives you some of those built-in ones with bounce and mobile, but if there's not one built in, that's exactly what you want. You can use this criteria over here, what's important, like maybe a specific language, and you save it, and so you now have this new segment that you can use in your account. So when you are doing that, you have the built-in, or you can go advanced, and don't be scared off by advanced. Advanced is great if you're wanting to just check multiple things at a time. Like I wanted to see this ad, and maybe for a specific geographic region, or whatever you want to decide is where you might go to this advanced and use the conditions. And I'll keep walking you through the next few slides before I switch over. The other thing I'll show you is that you can share out your segments. So if a segment that you really like, you can share it out with somebody else once you create one that seems to be doing well for you. And I'm going to show you briefly this solutions gallery. This is where you have segments that are already created, so it can make your life a little bit easier. And walk over to the gallery. I'll show you how to work that, and then seeing how those segments work through. So let me come back and share and go back into analytics, and then those things I just showed you with segments, I want to show you that in a real account, so it makes it easier for you to use that later on. So I'm coming to a segment into my reporting, and I generally just start an audience overview, but I could do the same thing in acquisition or any other area. But this is, I switch from one area, I see add segment here, another overview area, and I segment. So again, these segments, you can access them from multiple places. So I will add a segment. Starters, I'm going to use a system segment, ones that are built in. So you have to scroll. Of course, you can scroll through it maybe if you're curious about what's included. Actually, let me back up. I see what I did here. I'm still in that book blog view, which isn't going to have any data. So let me switch back to about a minute to my regular one. Okay, so when I go to add my segment, what I'll do for this example is I'll show you, let's see, we'll look at organic versus paid. So if I don't want to scroll through everything here, I'll just go ahead and I'll search organic, and I see an organic traffic segment. Once I clicked it, it was added up here, and compare that to paid. So I click and that's added. So right now I'm looking at all of my sessions compared to organic and paid traffic. I'll apply this. You'll see, of course, this will be for all of you. You're going to have your all sessions is going to be 100%, right? Because, of course, there's got to be somebody who's on there. So that's 100% just for all of your data. You also can do just up to 4 channels, but in this case, I'm just doing organic and paid. So you can see these numbers are pretty small. So the first thing that this tells me is that I'm probably getting a lot of referral traffic, right? Or direct traffic if paid and organic is pretty low. So once I come down here, I can start to just kind of compare these different traffic sources together. One thing I could do, well, I think I will remove this, so I can look at all sessions by organic, by paid. But my goal is in this scenario is to just look at the organic compared to paid. I'm going to get rid of this all sessions. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can click here and remove it, or when you go over to the left, your cursor change, you can just throw it away. Since I did that, so now I'm looking, whoops, did I not throw it away? There we go. Okay, looking at just my organic and paid traffic. So these segments applied, they'll stay as I'm looking through different areas on the left side. And right now I'm in my audience overview, and see if anything's jumping out here. I see that during this time period, there's a little more paid than organic. Paid, spent a little more time on the site. So you can just start an overview, seeing if there's a real difference with your traffic sources. And I can come down here to, of course, I'll skip acquisition, because I'm looking at traffic sources. So I'm going to come here and do behavior next. So let's overview of behavior. You'll notice that this didn't change. I've still got organic and paid. And let's see. Just tell a little bit more, like a little bit of a higher bounce rate and, et cetera. You can really drill in there. And then I'll do next, and I'll take a look at goals. These are the actions that you want people to take on your site. So I have goals of, contact me, time on site. And you can also, here I can see that my organic traffic is completing goals a little bit more than my paid traffic. So that's a use case of using segments. If you want to get out of the segment view and come back to your data in general, you just you do this, you can just throw these away. When you throw these away, it's going to default to all sessions. So it's always got to have something. So the all sessions just automatically comes back there. So I'll also next show you how to create a segment. So the one we did first is we were just pulling some ones that were already created by Google. You still do that in the same place. So you see up here, I'm still in add segment. So I'm going to do add segment and then new segment. So I will create, I think of one to create. I will pick one that's maybe at specific sources. I'll say I want segment if my source is Bing or Yahoo. So we'll try that, see what happens here. So I name it. Same thing with filters, reports, or anything in your account, making sure you name it well so it makes sense later on. So I choose the condition of first, and if I say Yahoo, or any Yahoo visits. Let's see what they're. Okay, I had one user from Bing. Let me think about this a different way. Bing or Google, right? Not getting a lot of data. As you're creating your conditions over here, it's going to give you a preview of what data you're going to get. So during this time period, I only had one from Bing, so not a whole lot there. So I'm going to say if my source is Bing, my source is Google, that I didn't have anything coming from Yahoo. Okay, that's going to be quite a bit of my traffic. So once I save this and let it minute, new segment where my source is Bing or Yahoo. And one that I'll show you another one is add segment. Date of first visit, July. Okay, so the reason that you would care about this is if you were doing a huge marketing campaign at the beginning of this month and you were doing both online and you were doing a lot of offline promo and you want to see what was happening, you would come in and you can do a condition. That's it's date of first visit. So if I say my first session, people who come to the site for the first time between July 1 and July 8. And I'm not having any, I don't have any data here, so I may not have any visitors earlier in this month. But now once you have this segment, what you're doing, you're kind of making some assumptions that your traffic in early July might have been people who were coming as a result of your promotions. So making assumptions that, these are first-time visitors, then this can be a segment that you apply and see how their behavior is different. So I'll show you the gallery and the sharing options yet. So what I want you to know, though, about, again, is temporarily, you're making changes to your data on a temporary basis. The other thing you can do is share them across accounts or share them with other users. So I'll show you those sharing options. Again, anytime you want to do anything with a segment, you want to create one, add one, edit, copy. You're doing all of this from the Add Segment screen. So when I come to Add Segment, I will to, okay, I've got one in here for Bing. Another thing you will notice if you do manage more than one analytics account like I do, when you log into analytics, you're going to see all of your segments in here. So whether it's, something from another, so I had a client I was running a Bing campaign on, and here in this little book account, I'm not doing a paid campaign on Bing. I am seeing this because that's something that I used, with a client. So we have here, you come in here, you're looking at segments, and over on the right side, you have your actions. So pretty clear cut, this edit is, the segment's maybe not doing quite what you want it to do, that you don't start from scratch. You come in here and edit it. The reason copy is helpful is if you did a segment that's pretty complicated, so it meets this criteria and this criteria and that criteria, and you want to work from it, but you want to change the existing one, that's why you would do copy. The share, I'll go ahead and click on that so you can see what happens. It means that I'm sharing I'm sharing basically the skeleton of my segment. So if I had a complicated segment, it's got 5 criteria, and I, copied this and I shared this URL, what you would be getting in your account is the skeleton of that segment. So it wasn't sharing any data. It's just that you would be able to use the segment with your own, in your own account. Let's go on to just kind of watching time so we can have questions if you need it. We'll talk about the Solutions Gallery. The Solutions Gallery is extremely helpful for when you're looking at people who've maybe already created something that you need. So I'm going to import from the gallery a screen, which you saw in the presentation as I was showing you. So I'm saying I want to look at segments, and this is just giving me a list of some, different things out there. So I'll go ahead and I'll just go ahead and pick this first one. Go ahead and say import, and what I'm doing is I'm importing the configuration for this segment. I won't pull this exact one in because there's so much information here, but these are all of the different types of segments that somebody already created that I can add to my account. So when you're doing import, you're not having to create something from scratch, because like I showed you here, some of your segments could probably be pretty complicated. Have one and you're creating a condition and you're saying or this and this, et cetera, it can take you a lot of time. So if you're getting started with segments, probably, the best way to start is to come in, add segment, and the system ones. Just seeing what Google already has prepared for you, and you can see, like I showed you, organic versus paid traffic. You could look at mobile versus desktop traffic. So the system ones, if you see some there that you want to try out, if you look through here and there isn't one that's quite what you're looking for, you can do a new segment. And again, all these options here to the left are available to you. If you're struggling a little bit, sometimes it can help to look at the solutions gallery. And again, get that from a segment. You do import from gallery, and that way you're looking at the ones that have already been configured. You're bringing them into your account, and then if you want to, you can edit them once you bring them in. Somebody can at least do that beginning work for you, so you have that framework of what you want to change. Back to the slides, just kind of reviewing what these things are one more time before we go ahead and get some questions from people. Just kind of the recap, and I do repeat this a lot because it is really important for people to know, is again, the segments are just while you're in analytics today and you're looking at data, and then when you come back tomorrow, everything was still as it was because it was temporary. When you apply a filter to a view, it doesn't take right away. It's starts the day of moving forward. It's permanent. So when you say I don't want this traffic anymore, then it's gone. So a filter is permanent. I want to see what happened for the last month. The filter will be from when it's applied, to the future. Again, since it's just your view, you log into analytics and using a segment, it's going to look a certain way to you, whereas a filter is going to affect everyone who shares that account. Segments aren't limited to rights. If you're a user or an admin, that doesn't matter because it's not a permanent change. Anyone can create a segment. With filters, generally people with higher levels of rights, which makes sense since you can do some mistakes there. And again, segments, no harm done. You don't like it, it's not giving you the data that you want, then no problem there. Filters, I've seen some mistakes made in accounts, which is why I say it's always a good idea to have one raw profile or raw view so you don't lose any of your data. Before we go into the Q&A, I just will point out on the ASPE blog, this was a fairly recent article under my name. If you just go to ASP ROI and just look for Tina Arnoldi on just how to use segments and filter analytics. So that might be a good reference for you to use in conjunction when you get the slides from today's talk. It'll just kind of help you when you're getting ready to do that into your account. So yeah, we're stopping a little bit earlier today. Sometimes I go to these and I put too much information in and we only have about 2 minutes left. So we do have some time today for questions. If Melissa, you want to take this over?
Hi, Tina. I'm not any questions at the moment. Everyone feel free to send them in using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll wait a few minutes so that you have some time to send them in.
Yeah, is there something, too, that you want me to go back into my account to show you something in a segment or filter that wasn't clear? Please let me know. doesn't look coming in, and so I'm not sure if that's a good sign or a bad sign. So.
If anyone has any questions, please send them in. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Doesn't look like we have questions, Tina. So it looks like that brings us to the end of the seminar. The presentation will be emailed to everyone by the end of next week. I want to thank Tina for an excellent seminar, as well as thank each of you for attending. That's it for today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week.